Hello. All right. Well, the question of it is a lot of people. Another complaint that came in was saying, without, because I will get to Putin and whatnot, I'll get to all your running class so-called presidents. But if you look back in history for a little bit, and you go, why did a monarch go from a monarch to a president? Well, it's pretty simple. Pretty much there was a war and they claim all this independency and whatnot, but when verifying a document, you don't put it on a what they call smash pulp paper. When I talk about smash pulp paper, it means that someone had no knowledge of how to make paper, and when they put it down on this smash pulp paper, the only thing that's taking a beating for you writing on that paper are the trees. And how this works is, at least on this planet, which has been the biggest pain as far as the planet, and the reason for it is because we're starting to get what they call a solar glare. And I'm trying to figure out if it's more of an electricity glare off the lines or if it's actually a solar glare. To define a solar glare is when the sun's getting too close to a planet to where it's reaching its outer meridian, right before the outer meridian, which is kind of, if you draw a circle around the sun, how far the light may reach at a very good standpoint of a glare. And it's like having a flashlight in your face all the time. To the outer part of that rim, to where it's actually hitting you more constantly. Some people are like, oh, when people's eyeballs burn out. No, it's normally the caution line, if you do it, probably about a half an inch to a quarter of an inch out past that, and then you got one a little bit out past that by an eighth of an inch. And when you hit the eighth of an inch one is when you start evacuating a planet. Now, the interesting part of it is this planet actually rotates around that sun. A lot of planets do not rotate around a sun. Only the ones up for destruction inside a solar rotate around a sun. And the reason for that is the gravity of the sun is starting to become so massive that it's starting to pull planets to itself. But anyway, let's go back to the history part. I just thought I'd say that real quick about the solar glare. They start talking about smash pulp paper. I mean, they show two different versions of the so-called documents in the United States. They show a flat sheen, which is the standard British paper. The Spanish weren't allowed to use that type of paper. Only Britain was, and it was very, very expensive. Mainly because they didn't write hardly anything on it, unless it was useful and harmless to the trees. Now then they show this other type of paper, which they call smash pulp paper. It really doesn't look like smash pulp paper. It looks like a convolution of, like, you threw someone's skin inside a vat with wood and then decided to call it paper. Because you see, skin will peel away like, you know how they have in grocery stores, those little cheese sticks that you peel, and after a while, if you take a cheese stick and buy it, and you take it and you just take your fingernail and run it right down the center and flip it open so that it's almost flat and on half without separating itself, you'll start to see the point I'm trying to make. The skin will do that too. It'll actually kind of look like smashed wallpaper, and that's because a few people over in Europe, their countries, and down in Africa, Afghanistan, China, all that. I mean, we had problems with cannibalism, and the one thing they like to do, cannibals like to do, in the reference of people eating people, they like to write on people's skin. So they take whoever, and they pretty much take your skin, dry it out, and they would keep your skin really on the inside. They keep it moist so that it wouldn't dry up and wither. And then they take either a knife or a pen or what they call a pen, which is a knife pen and you take this little string, you run it down through the end, up through the other side, and you just start carving and writing. And in some senses, it looks almost like a tattoo, but it uses a ton of ink to do it. And they use this because some cannibals and tribes believe that you can actually take someone's authority away from them. Because really, when you get into, do the people have authority? Some of the things you don't want in life is power, authority, and dominion. Some will say demonic instead of dominion. Some will say domain. That's even worse than dominion and demonic. And what happens is these people that tend to have this, they'll go nuts sooner or later. I mean, they'll just go insane. And it tends to drive them crazy. Fastest way to piss anyone off in Washington is to walk by and just, outright say, verbalize it. Take their authority away from them. But when you have this, you don't want to do anything. You don't want to think anything because it may or may not happen. With this being said, it also caused a nonchalant, it actually set me off. So when you do that, I'll actually take it away from you. So the person down in Washington may not actually know it right away. So everyone's like, what do you do with it when you get it? I just kind of let it sit out there in a certain way that people can't see, so they can't touch it, because it does not belong to a person. It doesn't belong to an animal. It doesn't belong to a statue. Stuff like that. But anyway, let's get back into to the past history of the United States. They say that when the Constitution, or what was the Bill of Rights, was written, that it was done by church-going people and whatnot, mainly between Mormons. Christian is not an actual religious term. Christian just means someone who separates themselves away from others who aren't religious or are just good-natured people. That's what the word by definition of Christian is. Now everyone's like was wondering what's going on with this whole entire world, because everything you see right now is hush hush, and it's like they're building shuttles. They just built me 4 SpaceX shuttles. I'm not too sure. I believe they're sitting out in California, or they're sitting down in Florida. Excuse me. Top of the line, top end technology, space shuttles. To actually go what they refer to as long distance, except I still need the other thing built, and that is what they call a solar ring. It's not really a solar ring as much as a fuel pod ring. And all those shuttles have to link up to that. Plus I got to get the other spacecraft out of New Mexico, which I think they're trying to rip apart right now, which is a really bad idea because it holds more than your shuttles do. And whatnot. Anyway, back to the point. So when you get to history, did someone is planning to evolve and all of a sudden, boom, you got people? No, you get a lot of people were brought here dropped off. That's why you'll see in the past histories and literature they talk about colonizing. It's not colonizing a country, it's colonizing a planet, which is often probably the biggest thing that often happened. Was colonizing a planet where you send a gross amount of people that know how to survive onto a planet, and they just pretty much build cities. This planet wasn't actually supposed to use its oil supply nor its gas supply because it was a very, very light end planet. When I say light end planet, it's not a very heavy planet. It came down into speculation of whether or not we could actually use the water supplies on the planet without having to pull off the ocean instead, or the oil or the gas, leaving it where it was. The magnets, China likes to dig around for magnets on its side of the planet. I won't say its supply, but the side of the planet. That's not a very good idea. I mean, you guys start digging around. Oh, we need magnets for this. We need magnets for that. And you start doing that, you're going to start getting this planet to slowly, after a certain amount of millions of tons of magnetic material, getting the sun to actually lose its viability of, like I said before, you take a magnet and on one side it'll go together, on the other side it won't. So you get this planet to start drifting into the sun. So far in 1984 to 1985, this planet has actually drifted into not Mercury, but it's heading into Mercury's orbit line, which tells you that this planet is actually getting ready to, probably in 500 years, it won't be here. So you're probably saying, well, where did all these spaceships go? Well, first they're going to send an envoy spaceship, the one I was on, as you guys know it, to see whether or not there's any viable people to pull off a planet. We say viable. If you murder someone, you will not be leaving this planet, at least not right away. We normally put those people in very, very cold and very harsh places. The Odyssey Odyssey galaxy is one of those planets. It's a very, I don't know, I like the planet because I'm used to cold environments. It's nothing but snow, sun, a lot of interesting stuff hidden underneath the snow, but it constantly snows. It's very, very cold. It's anywhere from -18 at night to -80 at night as well. During the day, it doesn't warm up anywhere past 35 degrees Fahrenheit. But to me, I mean, it's a fun planet, but it's a very harsh planet to actually survive on. And the reason for it is you just can't take a drill bit and go out and start drilling down for any type of mineral, because you're sitting on almost 400 to 500 feet, if not 900 to 1,000 feet, up to 3,000 feet of freaking snow, where cities used to be. So if you, I kind of like to make fun of certain oil groups, like roughneck oil groups that they have here. If you ever wanted a challenge, that'd be your challenge. Because by the time you hit 4,000, or the top highest mountain on that planet is 8,000 feet. So I mean, you would be pretty much dropping one tube after another. But anyway, and even on that planet, I'm not even sure there's any oil on there or any gas in there. I mean, there's a ton of stuff, but it's it's a very harsh planet. Uh, every now and then, though, within 3 decades, you get a single decade of where it stops snowing. You get rain. You get a lot of sun. But the biggest part of that planet is the harshness of the what they call white out on the ice. Okay, anyway, back to what I was talking about. I'm going to stray away from your this planet's history because that's very limited. So I think the biggest problem inside the United States is getting all these people that call themselves Illuminati, people that normally are almost damn near dead because of their own stupidity. Last thing you'll see is yourself light up. When you light up, you'll actually end up going black. So, sooner or later, a light will escape you that is inside you. Mainly comes from, if you like to go out and sunbathe and be an idiot and ABSORB, a lot of sunlight, and actually verbalize the fact of it. It's only a trick. It's not really an occult. It's a lot of stupidity because by the time they sit there and rip people off of money and everything, they pretty much figured out, hey, I look like a hot dog that someone cooked for 4 hours, and they all look shriveled up. But anyway, what is the UN hiding from you at this point in time? The fact that this planet's being evacuated. The evacuation hasn't actually started back in 1964. 25 spaceships showed up and took the majority of what they refer to as innocent people, or someone who's never killed anyone. Pretty much categorized them, put them on a ship, and sent them to certain planets. Now, some of them had a problem getting past a certain region, because if you go all the way out by Pluto, right around the January month, and you follow the planets by their alignment, and you stray off roughly about 45 planets, and you can't say east, west, north, and south, because there really is none of that out there. You end up hitting what they call flux, and the flux is no more than you see the ocean water, and this is the biggest thing that ends up shutting down spaceships. It's water emitted into space, and because of the fact that it is clear, it doesn't really have a color, you end up getting it into your rockets. Because you can't really, some of this like Star Trek stuff you see and whatnot, it is about as fake as it gets. You can't really use a propulsion light engine. It doesn't work. You'll be sitting up there looking like a flashlight more than anything. You can't use a car engine. You can't use any of those. Pretty much junk. Propulsion rates normally vary by the type of rocket. Like the rockets I like to use are the ones they use in the center. What they refer to as a main engine rocket, I call it a main center rocket. And I don't know, the way I design rockets and stuff and the way they design it kind of different, because the ring I'm talking about actually can turn 360 just sitting where it's at, so you can actually stop before you actually smash into a planet. But yeah, I mean, we're probably, I know I'm gonna start saying about evacuating certain countries. That's why when you hear that little voice in your head that says, put yourself back together, put your stupid self back together, because I can't take a half person out into space. It just doesn't work. Your ass will go flying out the backside of a spacecraft. And you get stuck in the main rockets when they fire off, you'll be crispy toast. And I'll just eject you out into space and forget about you. A lot of your thoughts that you might have just had recently, you just got confirmation of that. Geogravity, engines don't work unless you're going to hit one planet after another, and it's like pinball machine. Because if your batteries die in your spacecraft, which most of them do, you'll end up smashing into a planet. And they use this, I don't know, Eptium Galaxy likes to use gravities spaceships. I just think they're a bunch of idiots that like to crash into shit. So, I mean, because every time you go to their planet, it's a crash spaceship. And that's Epstein Galaxy. Plus, they're funny looking. But I mean, if you figure out a few things in history, you'll find out this planet started over and over and over and over again, and not necessarily by a flood or anything, just by the fact that some of the colonies are, the nature of a person is the biggest problem. Really, I wasn't picking on black or brown. I'm picking on everyone. I mean, you got Chinese who isolate themselves. You got Japanese who are a little bit more of the wide variance of not isolating themselves from people. You got the U.S., and the U.S. is just outright provocative. You got Europe, which is more of a very high-end conservative country, and more about its respect for itself and the country than you do anything else. You got Africa, which is no more than an animal reservation. You got Afghanistan, which is a country reserved that has pretty much I mean, it's like hardly anything that happens in Afghanistan as far as mining or removing minerals. Indonesia, Pakistan, Singapore, same way. Upper north half of Europe, almost the same way. They're working on actually restoring some of their mineral deposits, such as oil, which is a byproduct of liquidized tar. And like to recycle, to recycle your car engine oil. If you ever look at the baseline of car engine oil, it's no more than vegetable oil. It's no more than canola oil. Just dirt. It's dirty. Because of all the stuff people cook. And back in 1720 to 1730, we told people, and they've been doing this for a very long time, inside the United States, to stop taking your oil from what you use and start putting it in containers. And the government supplied containers to people, and it said oil. And they would go around, round them up, and dump them into an empty or a totally empty well that has no connection to anything, not even a live spring. And you just keep dumping, food oil, and don't matter what kind. And to rejuvenate it, One, Venezuela, South America actually followed the structure or the instructions I gave them better than most people, because they actually pull their oil up out of the ground, and they have very, very, very little refinery practice. And what I mean by refinery practice means they don't have to filter their oil hardly at all, where the U.S. filters heavily. And that's because, you take your oil, you run it through a high-end strainer, different level strainer, metal strainer, and then at the bottom you have this cotton ball. And when you do this, even though it does sometimes use a lot of cotton and whatnot, you dump it into an evacuated or empty well that is no longer in use, no longer can be used, because the water's out of it. And then you dump, well, the hard part of it is if you don't keep track of how many gallons you put in there, you'll really mess yourself up real quick. But if you keep how many gallons you have in there, then you take 38% and you do the mathematics and dump, you dump tar, you dump engine oil, and everything else into it that's been cleaned and filtered. And this, you make this really weak ass tar ball, and it provides viscosity. But I'll honestly tell you another thing: viscosity. There's no viscosity in oil. Whoever made up that word is kind of an idiot, because viscosity means masculine or muscularity. Even though I said delete erase muscularity, it's actually musculine. And musculine, if you ever follow a skunk will spray musculine all over you. That's why you don't use the word viscosity in oil. But anyway, that's the end of this video. Good night.